So, would you agree, Mr. Rosenstein, to provide a letter to Director Mueller, similarly, providing that Director Mueller has the authority as special counsel, quote, independent of the supervision or control of any officer of the department, and ensure that Director Mueller has the authority that is plenary and not, quote, defined or limited by the special counsel regulations?
Well, Senator, I'm very sensitive about time, and I'd like to have a very lengthy conversation and explain that all to you. I tried to do that.
Can you give me a yes or no answer,
in the closed
please?
briefing? Well, it's not a short answer, Senator. The answer
It is either you are willing to do that or not, as we have precedent in that regard.
But
Mr. Chairman, they should be allowed to answer the question.
It's a long question you pose, Senator, and I fully appreciate the import of your question, and I'll get to the answer. My quibble with you is Pat Fitzgerald is a very principled, very independent person. I have a lot of respect for him. Pat Fitzgerald could have been fired by the President because he was a United States attorney. Robert Mueller cannot, because he's protected by those special counsel regulations. So although it's theoretically true that there are circumstances where he could be removed by the acting attorney general, which for this case at this time is me, your assurance of his independence is Robert Mueller's integrity and Andy McCabe's integrity and my integrity and those regulations.
Sir, if I may, the greater assurance is not that you and I believe in Director Mueller's integrity, which I have no question about Mr. Mueller's integrity. It is that you would put in writing an indication based on your authority as the acting attorney general that he has full independence in regards to the investigations that are before him. Are you willing or are you not willing to give him the authority to be fully independent of your ability statutorily and legally to fire him?
He has the
yes or no, sir?
He has the full independence that is authorized by those regulations. And
are
Senator,
you willing to do as has been done before?
With the senator suspend, the chair is going to exercise its right to allow the witnesses to answer the question, and the committee is on notice to provide the witnesses the courtesy, which has not been extended all the way across, extend the courtesy for questions to get answered.
Mr. Chairman, respectable,
Mr. Rosenstein,
I would point out
you,
that this witness has joked with the, as we all have,
the senator
ability
will suspend.
to filibuster.
Mr. Rosenstein, would you like to thoroughly answer
Thank
the
you,
question?
Mr. Chairman. Senator, I'm not joking. The truth is, I have a lot of experience with these issues, and I could speak to you for a very long time about it, and I'm sympathetic. I appreciate the 5-minute limit. That's not my limit. But the answer is, this originated, as you may know, with the independent counsel statute. And I worked for an independent counsel, and I worked in the department during the independent counsel era when independent counsels were appointed by authorization of the Senate. They were appointed by federal judges, and they had essentially the authority equivalent to the Attorney General. That statute sunsetted, and the majority of members of this body concluded that that was appropriate because they did not want special independent counsels who were 100% independent of the Department of Justice. That was a determination made by the legislature. Now, I know the folks at the department who drafted this regulation under Janet Reno, and they drafted it to deal with this type of circumstance. And the idea was that there would be some circumstances where, because of unusual events, it was appropriate to appoint somebody from outside the department, not somebody like Pat Fitzgerald, who was a U.S. attorney who could be fired, but somebody from outside the department who could be trusted to conduct this investigation independently and could be given an appropriate degree of independence. Now, under the regulation, he has, I believe, adequate authority to conduct this investigation. And your ultimate check, Senator, is, number one, the integrity of the people involved in the investigation. But number two, the fact that if he were overruled or if he were fired, we would be required under the regulation to report to the Congress. And so I believe that's an appropriate check. And so I realize that theoretically anybody could be fired, and so there's a potential for undermining an investigation. I am confident, Senator, that Director Mueller, Mr. McCabe, and I and anybody else who may fill those positions in the future will protect the integrity of that investigation. That's my commitment to you, and that's the guarantee that you and the American people have.
Senator
So
Cornyn.
is that a no?
Senator Cornyn.